I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so.
Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia Law.
A mere 5 days after President Trump flew back to the United States with those precious pictures of him and the King together at Windsor, the predictable flaying of the United Kingdom has begun. And it wasn't just those preposterous comments that the president made about Sharia law in London that demonstrated his bromance with the Prime Minister is now over. As his speech to the United Nations General Assembly continued, there was more.
They've given up their powerful edge, a lot of the countries that we're talking about in oil and gas, such as essentially closing the great North Sea oil. Oh, the North Sea, I know it so well. What a tremendous asset for the United Kingdom. And I hope the Prime Minister is listening, because I told it to him 3 days in a row. That's all he heard. North Sea oil, North Sea, because I want to see them do well. I want to stop seeing them ruining that beautiful Scottish and English countryside with windmills and massive solar panels that go 7 miles by 7 miles, taking away farmland. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything.
Now, psychologists will for decades to come have a field day with that, trying to understand how it is possible for one man wielding so much power to allow himself to talk such palpable nonsense. And that's before we get to his claim this week that the United Nations was trying to sabotage him. You will have seen the pictures of the escalator at UN headquarters failing just as he and the First Lady stepped aboard, and then the teleprompter failing as he began to read his meandering, bile-riven speech. A normal person would have shrugged their shoulders and worked through those issues, but not this bloke, even when he was justifiably complaining about the UN's failure to live up to its goals, protecting civilians in harm, promoting peace. Even then, he just couldn't let go.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle, and then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
I mean, what can you say, apart from the fact that he did not, in fact, end 7 wars? Never mind the manners of the farmyard that he has exhibited towards the royal family and the Prime Minister. He is now demanding that the UN launches a formal investigation of what he claims was triple sabotage of his visit to New York. The third sin was, he falsely asserts, an underperforming sound system in the hall that he claims meant people couldn't hear his speech. They should have been so lucky. Still, at least he's no longer unleashing stormtroopers on the public in cities all over the country.
She was thrown onto the ground, and as agents crossed the street, moving protesters further away, that woman reached up and grabbed the mask of one of the ICE agents. That's when another one put her in a headlock, and you can see on video there that she flashes a peace sign.
Look up on the roof here. You got 3 guys now with pepper ball launchers ready to respond to this crowd.
Fox News and News Nation there covering growing protests outside the Broadview detention facility near Chicago. Tear gas and pepper spray were fired this week at demonstrators seeking to disrupt immigration and customs enforcement operations in the Windy City. The detention center is where the president's masked ICE agents take immigrants to figure out if they are in the United States illegally or not. In New York City, things were even worse.
Pull her away. Pull her away. Suerte. Suerte, señora.
In the hallway of a courthouse, a family from Ecuador attending an asylum hearing tried desperately to stop ICE from suddenly taking the father away. He held on to his daughter. ICE agents commanded him to let her go. The masked thugs of Donald Trump's government grappling to peel a dad away from his wife and two young children. Through brute force, they eventually succeeded, dragging the man away. But his wife, Monica Moreta Galaza, refused to give up. She begged an agent for information about where her husband was being taken. "Goodbye, lady," he repeatedly said, till he suddenly snapped. He slammed her into a wall and then onto the corridor's floor while the family's young children watched on. And again, this was taking place in a New York City courthouse. She would later seek refuge in the office of New York Congressman Dan Goldman, a Democrat justifiably accusing ICE of assault and demanding disciplinary action.
And she's crying and she gets thrown to the ground by an ICE agent and hits her head. What is this coming to? What is ICE doing?
After leaving hospital, where she was treated for a head injury, Mrs. Moreta Galaza said she couldn't believe the family had escaped violence in Ecuador only to confront it in America.
They beat us there too. I didn't think I'd come here to the United States and the same thing would happen to me.
Democrats are now finally debating whether to call this out for what it may well be and discussing when to start calling this fascism. Gestapo tactics, the likes of which we have not seen on the streets of America, at least since the dogs and the water cannon were unleashed in the South during the civil rights era. Republicans are furious even at the suggestion that the F word should be used. But how else to describe the antics of out-of-control masked federal agents refusing to identify themselves as they sweep people up in the president's mass deportation maw? The Democrats know that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then generally it is one. And last night came more evidence of the perilous path the US is now walking.
We have some breaking news right now on ABC News Live reports. Sources are telling ABC News that a grand jury has in fact indicted ex-FBI Director James Comey.
We're told that a false statement charge and an obstruction of justice charge. There were 3 that were brought before the grand jury, and the grand jury handed up an indictment on 2 of those.
That news, reported there by ABC and Fox, caused shockwaves in Washington. President Trump overturning the traditional but not constitutionally protected independence of the Department of Justice, using it as his own office of personal retribution. His target, James Comey, who during Trump's first term was ousted from his post after refusing to pledge loyalty to the president and refusing to bury or whitewash the investigation of the Trump campaign's ties to Russia. Here in full is Mr. Comey's statement last night.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
The indictment against him was laid by a Trump appointee, a former Miss Colorado contestant, no really, who has never mounted a prosecution before. She could not get a single Department of Justice lawyer to agree to sign the charge sheet. Legal analysts say that's a clear sign of the slim chances that the charges will stick. Let's end on a lighter but still very dangerous note. Jimmy Kimmel was not the only TV star making a return to the airwaves this week. Dr. Trump was back as well.
Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. And don't give it to your child after your child is born.
For the first time since he suggested that disinfectant might make an appropriate treatment for COVID-19, the president, who has absolutely no medical training, announced that over-the-counter paracetamol, as we call it in the UK, is a probable cause of autism. The studies do not bear that out. Flanking him, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who also has absolutely no medical training. But that is not stopping him from eviscerating the availability of vaccines in America. On Monday, for the men playing doctor on TV, things did not get off to a particularly auspicious start.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of acetaminophen, is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
He can't even pronounce it, and he's up there giving people false information that doctors, real ones, say could lead pregnant women down a path of unnecessary pain and even danger. Doctors, scientists, autism advocates, and of course our own government all called out his nonsense. But none of this is going to stop. And with the state visit to the UK now in the president's rear view mirror, our Prime Minister must surely now be aware that he's going to have boatloads more trouble with this president and the retreat of democracy here in the 3 long years that lie ahead.